Donald Trump's visit to a veteran rehabilitation center in Missouri was meant to be quiet. No cameras, no speeches, just a courtesy stop arranged by his staff. But from the moment he arrived, he sensed this visit would be different. The center was known less for its facilities than for its people, men and women who carried wars inside them and resilience on their backs. Among them stood Major Iris Vance, a 68-year-old retired Marine. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back neatly, a cane steady in one hand. She rarely spoke about her service, yet her presence commanded respect. Strength radiated from her silence. What Trump didn't know was that Iris had been preparing for weeks. Her granddaughter, Sierra, who worked part-time at the center, often found her grandmother awake late into the night, sorting through old boxes beside a humming sewing machine. When Sierra finally asked what she was working on, Iris only smiled. Closure. As the day of the visit approached, the center buzzed with anticipation. Veterans straightened flags, cleaned their rooms, and hung handmade banners. Iris remained calm. In her small room, beneath a faded photograph of her Marine squad, she sat with a wrapped box resting on her lap. "He won't expect this," she whispered. The morning arrived quietly. Trump's motorcade rolled in without fanfare. As he stepped inside, Iris rose slowly, leaning on her cane. She met his eyes without hesitation. "I have something for you, Mr. President," she said. And with that, a moment began that neither of them would forget. Iris hadn't always been quiet. In her prime, she was fearless, commanding, spirited, the loudest voice in the barracks. But her final deployment changed everything. She came home with medals and wounds no one could see. As she guided Trump through the center, he noticed the depth in her eyes, wisdom layered with grief. Along the halls, veterans saluted. Trump stopped to shake every hand, lingering with a wheelchair-bound Navy corpsman and listening intently as a young Army amputee spoke of recovery. Through it all, Iris stayed close, observant and patient. In the garden, she finally spoke. "My unit was ambushed in 1992. I was the only one who made it back." Trump stopped walking. "I lost 5 Marines," she continued. "My brothers, I buried my voice with them. That's why I don't talk much anymore." Trump didn't interrupt. He just listened. "They were brave," he said softly. "They deserve to be remembered, not just in stone, but in spirit. That's why I made this," Iris said, nodding toward the wrapped box Sierra held. "But before you receive it, you need to understand. It isn't just a gift. It's history. It's my soul." They sat together on a worn wooden bench. Iris pulled a faded photograph from her pocket. 6 young Marines, dusty and smiling, arms over each other's shoulders. "Iraq, 1992. I'm on the left," she said. "The man in the center is Captain J.T. Morales. He dragged me from a collapsed building. He died so I could live." Trump leaned closer. "They weren't just soldiers," Iris said. "They were family." For years, she explained, the pain had kept her silent. But silence, she realized, was its own betrayal. "So I started stitching their stories together," she said, tapping the box. "Literally." Trump nodded, eyes glistening. "If you open it when the time is right," Iris said. "And when is that?" he asked. "You'll know." He accepted the box unopened. Back in Washington, it sat on Trump's desk. Days passed. Weeks. Each morning, he glanced at it. When staff asked, he only said, "It's not time yet." One rainy night, unable to sleep, he stood in the Oval Office thinking of the veterans he'd met, the quiet ones who carried entire wars alone. He picked up the box. The next day, the world watched as Trump stood at Arlington National Cemetery. No grand stage. No politics. "This gift," he said, "was given to me by Major Iris Vance. She asked me to open it when the moment felt right. Today is that moment." Inside was a quilt, not just fabric, but memory. Each square told a story. Embroidered names, scanned letters, uniform patches. One read, "CPT J.T. Morales, dragged me out, died so I could live." Another held a letter dated a week before a Marine's death. Trump's voice broke. "This is more than a gift," he said. "It's a legacy, a reminder that when we lose a soldier, we lose a story." The quilt would not hang in his office, he announced, but where every American could see it. Watching from home, Major Iris Vance let a single tear fall. When the world clamored for interviews, Iris declined them all. Fame had never been the point. One evening, Sierra found her holding a sealed letter. "It's for Captain Morales," Iris said. "I wrote it years ago. I was never brave enough to read it." She read aloud at last, turning pain into words, grief into purpose. "I just shared it," she said quietly when she finished. Weeks later, Iris was invited to Washington. Reluctant at first, she went, not for applause, but to finish the promise. When she entered the Hall of Honor, her breath caught. Quilts lined the walls. At the center, beneath soft light, was hers, permanent. Trump smiled. "Your quilt is the first. You inspired something bigger." Iris ran her fingers over the stitches, each one a heartbeat. For the first time in decades, she didn't feel like a forgotten soldier. She felt whole. Donald Trump's visit to a veteran rehabilitation center, letters began flooding the veteran center. No cameras, no speeches, then hundreds. Just a courtesy stop arranged by his staff. They came from the moment he arrived and retired service members. This visit would be different. The center was known for facilities who had never worn a uniform. Men and women shared carried wars inside them and resilience on their backs. My father died in 2003. We never talked about his retired Marines. Her silver streaked hair was pulled back neatly. A cane steady in one hand. "I lost my brother in Afghanistan. She rarely spoke about her service. Thank you for reminding her presence commanded respect." Iris read radiated from her silence. One morning, what Trump didn't know was Sierra that walked in to find her grandmother writing on thick stationery. Her granddaughter, her hands Sierra, trembling slightly, who worked part-time at the center, doing, Grandma? Often found her grandmother awake. "I'm writing back," sorting through old boxes beside a humming sewing machine. For hours Sierra finally asked what she was Iris answered letters. Iris only smiled, notes, but with short, heartfelt as the day of the visit approached. Sometimes she shared a buzzed with anticipation. Sometimes a word. Veterans straightened flags, always cleaned their rooms, and hung handmade banners. The quilt had become more than a symbol. Iris remained calm. It was a bridge in her small connecting room, generations of pain, a faded photograph of a Marine squad, and through it she sat with Iris found her voice resting on her lap. With Iris' permission, this, she whispered. Sierra began photographing arrives and replies. Trump's motorcade rolled in without fanfare. The internet soon gave Iris as he stepped inside. Iris rose slowly, leaning on her cane. Slowly, she met his eyes without hesitation. Her silence became a source of strength. "I have something for you, Mr. President." One afternoon, a letter stood out. And with that, it came from a fifth grade class neither of them would forget. Iowa. Iris had Major Vance. Quiet. "We saw your quilt on a field trip. She was fearless, commanding, spirited. Can you help us?" Loudest voice in the barracks. It was signed by 23 final deployment changed and one determined teacher. She came home with medals and I've never taught class no before. Could see. As she guided Trump through the center. "You taught me my whole life." He noticed the depth in her eyes. "You've got wisdom layered with grief." Through video along the halls, Iris veterans saluted. Trump stopped wide-eyed every hand, answer their questions, lingering with a wheelchair-bound Navy corpsman, and listening intently as a young Army amputee spoke of recovery gently. Through it all, Iris isn't about never being observant and patient. It's about doing the right thing, even when finally spoke. "My unit was ambushed in 1992. Each child contributed a square. I was the only one who drew pictures. Others stitched the names of family members. I lost 5 Marines," she continued. "When the finished quilt arrived in the mail, I buried my voice as if it were gold. That's why I don't talk much anymore." She whispered. Trump didn't interrupt. And somewhere in Iowa, he just listened. A generation of children learned the meaning of honor, sacrifice, they deserve to be remembered, and gratitude, not just one Marine but in spirit. Months later, that's why I made this. A man arrived at the Veteran Center, nodding toward a wrapped box Sierra held. "I'm looking for Major Iris Vance. You need to understand," he said quietly. "It isn't just inside. A gift. Iris froze when she heard his name. It's my soul. David Morales." They sat together. The man on a worn wooden bench. Captain J.T. Iris pulled a faded photograph from her pocket. Without 6 young Marines, they embraced. Dusty and smiling, I recognized J.T.'s arms over each other's shoulders. David said, "1992. I know you kept his letter. I'm on the left." "It was all I had." She said. "The man in the center is Captain J.T. Morales." David opened a small box, dragged me from and placed a pair of dog tags in her hand. "He died so I could live. I've held on to these for years." Trump leaned closer. "But after what you've done, they weren't just soldiers with you. For the first time in decades, they were family." Iris cried for years. She explained that night. The pain had kept her silent. JT's silence, she realized, was his own betrayal. And Iris, so I started stitching their stories together. But as a gift, she said, "Tapping the box." Iris approached the city council. Trump with a new idea. Eyes glistening. A memorial garden. If you open it when the time is right. One flower for every fallen Marine. "And when is that?" he asked. "No statues. You'll know. No plaques." He accepted the box. Just life growing where there was back in Washington. "Do you have funding?" Sat on Trump's desk. Days passed. Iris replied. Each morning, but I have a granddaughter with a camera. When staff asked, each morning, but I have a granddaughter with a camera. When staff asked, he only said, "It's not time
Sierra
yet."
filmed Iris
One
walking
rainy
through an
night,
empty
unable
field,
to sleep, holding a single
in the
red
Oval
tulip,
Office, thinking of the
video
veterans
went
he'd met.
viral. The quiet
Donations
ones who
poured
carried
in.
entire wars
Veterans
alone.
volunteered.
He picked up the
Florists
box.
donated seeds.
The next day,
Families
the
sent
world
names.
watched as Trump
By
stood
spring,
at Arlington National
the garden
Cemetery.
bloomed.
No
Roses,
grand stage,
tulips, lavender,
no politics.
each marked with a
This
handwritten
gift,
name.
he said,
"This is my
was
second
given to me
quilt."
by Major
Iris said
Vance.
softly.
She
Stitched
asked
with
me to
petals.
open it when the moment felt
Letters
right.
continued to arrive.
Today is that moment.
One read,
Inside
"My name
was a
is
quilt,
Edith Monroe.
not just fabric.
I served too,
but memory.
But no one remembers
Each
me."
square told a story.
Iris called immediately.
Embroidered names,
Edith
scanned
was
letters,
92,
uniform
living
patches.
alone in assisted
One
care.
read, "I
CPT
only did
JT
paperwork,"
Morales,
she said.
"Dragged me out.
Nothing special.
Died so I could live.
You served."
Another held
Iris
a letter
replied.
dated a week.
That's
before
more than
Marine's
enough.
death.
They
Trump's
visited
voice
her the
broke.
next week.
"This is more
Bringing
than
flowers
a gift,"
and a tiny
he said.
flag quilt.
"It's a legacy.
I never got a uniform.
A reminder that when we
Edith
lose a
whispered.
soldier, we lose
Iris
a story."
pinned one of her own service
The quilt
pins
would not
to
hang in
Edith's
his
jacket.
office, he announced.
For women like you.
But where every American
then
could
on,
see it,
watching
Iris
from
made her
home,
mission to visit
Major
forgotten
Iris
veterans,
Vance
let a single tear
especially
fall.
women whose
When
stories
the world
have been
clamored
overlooked.
for interviews.
"You are not
Iris
forgotten,"
declined them
she
all.
told them.
Fame
"Not
had
while I'm
never been
here."
the point.
When
One
Sierra
evening,
received a full
Sierra
scholarship
found her
to
holding a
university.
sealed letter.
She hesitated.
"It's for Captain Morales.
"I don't want to leave you,"
Iris said.
"That's exactly
I wrote
why
it
you must
years
go."
ago.
Iris
I was
said,
never brave
"The
enough
world
to read it."
needs people who
She
remember
read
what
aloud
matters.
at last.
Before
Turning
Sierra
pain
left,
into words,
she recorded
grief
one
into
final
purpose.
video of Iris.
"I just
Don't
shared
wait
it,"
for the world to
she
remember
said
you.
quietly when she finished.
Iris said to the camera.
Weeks later,
Show them
Iris
who
was
you
invited
are.
to Washington.
Stitch your legacy
Reluctant
one
at
act
first,
at a time.
she went.
The clip
Not for
became one of the
applause,
most shared
but to
videos
finish the
of
promise.
Years
When she entered
later,
the Hall of Honor,
the original
her
quilt
breath
began to
caught.
fade.
Quilts
With
lined the
Iris's
walls.
blessing at the
It was
center,
returned to the
beneath
veteran's
soft
center.
light,
Was
placed
hers.
under soft light,
Permanent.
where it first been stitched.
Trump smiled.
Beside it
"Your
hung a
quilt
sign.
is the first.
The original
You
rests here.
inspired something
The
bigger.
mission continues."
Iris ran her
Visitors
fingers
now
over the
brought their
stitches.
own squares.
Each one a heartbeat.
One evening, for the first
Iris
time in
finished
decades,
one last stitch.
she didn't feel like
Black
a forgotten
fabric.
soldier.
Gold thread.
She felt whole.
Mission accomplished. Major Iris Vance, USMC. She handed it to Sierra. "Add it when it's time." That night, Iris passed peacefully in her sleep. At her funeral, veterans, children, presidents, and strangers stood together, not mourning her loss, but celebrating what she left behind. Years later, a young girl stopped before a quilt square. "That's my name," she said. Her mother smiled. She was a Marine, and she taught the world how to remember. The gift Iris gave was never just cloth or thread. It was remembrance, and her voice still speaks, in stitches and in hearts, forever.